one of the most important issues we've been discussing amongst like-minded liberal democracies, market-based economies, is the security of supply chains amongst those types of countries. And it was part of the discussion I had with Boris Johnson just last week, and I'm sure there'll be many more of those discussions in the months ahead over the course of the many international meetings. So you've got to have self-sufficiency here, and you've got to have partners you can rely on as well. And we're working both sides of that.
Just in terms of different types of fuel and happiness of power as well, what about aviation fuel? How exposed are we? How much supply would you have? Where is it about jet prices?
Yeah, I mean, the good news is, Chris, at the moment we've got more than enough aviation fuel. I mean, it's been, obviously with what's happened with the pandemic, it's been an enormous amount of aviation fuel, and the challenge has been to produce a little less, not more. But over the long term, that's also part of the minimum stock holding obligation. We've got to have enough aviation fuel. Defence has its own requirements and it deals with that separately, but we do have to have enough aviation fuel, and the minimum stock holding obligation applies to that, and these refineries can produce that as well.
The Defence Reserve capability is also something we've elsewhere addressed in the budget as part of the Defence IOP. Yep. Correct. Yep. Well, look, we're living, we can't guarantee every uncertainty that's out there, and I think what we're doing here is working together to provide that certainty over the next 9 years. And I think what we've shown as a government is our preparedness to work with everybody to provide further security and certainty into the future. So whether it's an aluminium smelter in Portland, or indeed up in Tomago, up in the Hunter, and the work that was done there around energy pricing, which also was supporting them to remain in the market, or indeed here. These are practical challenges, and we're constantly coming up with the practical answers to those, and I think today is another good demonstration of that. No doubt there'll be challenges in the future, and I can assure you we'll address those with the same application, and I believe the same success at that time and in the lead up to that time. Very good. Yep.
So the company under the package is committing to operate until mid-2027, and then the package is funded obviously for 9 years. That's a long way into the future, and it'll enable us to continue investing with confidence and supporting the jobs here in Lytton over that period. In the longer term, we'll make those future decisions.
Well, if there's no more questions on that matter, I might. Did you want on that one? Then I might thank very much all of our press from Ampol and the AW. Thanks very much, guys, for being with us. Appreciate it. Yeah. Yep.
What's the benchmark for a government to start considering opening the borders? Is it a level of vaccination of the population? And certainly, if the states believe that they've reached a level of vaccination programs where they believe it's safe to travel travelers come to their borders, the states go alone, so it really if they choose areas or their own states, or will it be a blanket decision?
Well, first of all, I welcome the fact that I think Australians, by and large, share the view that Australia has done incredibly well throughout the course of the pandemic, and we have been able to not only save lives but save livelihoods as well, and Australians want to see that continue, and I think they understand the importance of a cautious approach when it comes to maintaining our border arrangements. Now, those border arrangements, it's not one day the borders are open, one day the borders are closed. That's not how it works. There's a sliding sort of scale here, and we're working on the next steps. Now, it's not safe to take those next steps right now. It's not, but we'll keep working on what those next steps are. I've talked about those next steps. Those next steps are for Australians to be in a position when they're fully vaccinated to be able to not be subject to any domestic restrictions that are put in place by state and territory governments, that they might be able to travel with different types of quarantine arrangements on their return. And also the step of, in a managed and safe way, starting to bring back those who we need to come into the country, whether it's for international students or indeed for specialist occupations And I know we have a lot of challenges in the agricultural sector and the hospitality sector in regional areas and facilitating those types of arrangements. So I'd say more, Mark, that there are some practical challenges that we are working on now and finding solutions to, and you'll move incrementally, not all in one day, but right now it is not safe to be flicking the switch on those. I'm looking forward to further discussions with the Singapore government about them being the next potential country. Now, I still think that is some way off, particularly as we've seen, and it's a telling reminder. In Singapore, we are seeing lockdowns come back in, and that has been one of the more successful countries like Australia. In Taiwan, I'd argue probably the most successful country in the world, is now going through a challenging period and seeing restrictions come back in. That's why in the budget we talk about securing Australia's recovery, because we understand you cannot take it for granted. And so we won't be taking decisions that put Australians' lives and livelihoods at risk. We will be doing it cautiously. We will be working closely with states and territories on innovative ways that we can keep the borders safe, but at the same time, I think, address some of these other needs that are there. And to specifically answer your question in relation to states, just like we've had proposals come forward from South Australia when it comes to international student pilots, and we've already been doing those, or Northern Territory in terms of bringing in horticultural workers and things like that, and we're already working on them with a proposal they have around Bladen, which has been in the works now for some time. These are practical initiatives that we lean into with them. But the key thing is the overall border arrangements. They remain in place until it's safe to do anything different, and then we work within that to do practical things that I think support the economy but keep Australians safe. No, they had to do what everyone else did, and they did not take one place in quarantine that anyone else might have otherwise had. That's something we insisted on with the New South Wales state government when they were going to allow that flight back in, and we said, well, it has to be over and above the caps. But that said, I mean, I'm, as you know, very, very appreciative of the way the New South Wales government has kept their caps high. If it wasn't for New South Wales working with the Commonwealth on keeping those caps high, there'd be thousands upon thousands, if not tens of thousands of Australians who wouldn't have been able to get home were it not for the working relationship between the New South Wales government and the federal government.
So you just spoke about
Yeah, no, and working with the Northern Territory government. When I was in Darwin recently, it's a proposal that Chief Minister Gunner and I have discussed. It's been used for defence purposes and ag work as well in the past, as I understand it, but mainly for defence purposes with the US Marines, I understand. So it hasn't been going unutilised, but when those contracts finish, then there is the opportunity to do further work there, particularly dealing with workforce requirements in the Territory, and that is a matter that we were already working with the Northern Territory government on, and the farmers up there who put that proposal. We're very open to these well thought through, detailed, comprehensive proposals where costings are provided and who's running the health side of things and the operations and where's the workforce coming from and how's the capital being addressed. And we've seen a number of those. As you know, we're working through the Victorian proposal, which I think meets, vastly, I think, that level of detail that we need. You can't just sort of throw a photo on the ground and a map and say that's a proposal. That's not something we can respond to. So it's important that we do these things safely and we do them constructively. We've still got a little bit of time. There's a bit of the information I only received not that long ago, actually. So it's been worked through by my department, the Department of Home Affairs as well. And there's the precise points of the proposal. There's discussions going back and forth with the Victorian government. But I've got to say it's a very constructive, positive process. There are other alternatives in Victoria as well that we know that are available there, and I think they present some good opportunities as well. It's a bit hard for me to say at this point, Mark. Once we've gone through that process in the next couple of weeks, I think we'll be in a better position to give an answer to that question. Yeah. Well, the problem with it is we've never actually had a proposal. And the details, when you compare what's been put forward by the Victorian government, is chalk and cheese. Victoria's put a very comprehensive proposal to us, something we can actually work with, and we are. One of the biggest difficulty with that proposal is it's not near a major capital city where there's a major hospital. That's the big problem with it, amongst many others. The idea that you can just put these out in the desert somewhere, and I know Toowoomba's not the desert, but the point being, they need to be close to major capital city airports, because the planes aren't going somewhere else. They're coming into Brisbane, and that is a very long trek over Toowoomba. And so, you know, we have facilities up in the Northern Territory to bring our charters into, and that's what we're actually doing. We invested $500 million in this budget to upgrade the facilities at Howard Springs from 850 to 2,000. So we saw that as a much better way of increasing that capacity for those charter services. So where there's an opportunity to supplement what is happening in hotel quarantine, well, that's what the Victorian proposal's about. It's not replacing what's happening with hotel quarantine in Victoria. We still couldn't get straight answers on whether this proposal in Toowoomba was about replacing hotel quarantine or supplementing hotel quarantine. So there was just not enough detail, not enough answers to the questions that you needed to properly assess this. So I think it's reasonable to say that it hasn't been stacking up very well, particularly when you compare it to a very comprehensive and well thought through proposal from the Victorian government. I can't hear you, sorry. Well, look, it's for them to put proposals, and it's for them to do the homework, it's for them to get the detail right, and it's for them to put forward a comprehensive submission like the Victorians have. And if they were to do that, then they could expect the same sort of hearing that the Victorian government's getting. Well, good. Okay. It's great to be here. Go on, you are. Cheers.